Will we see capitulation? One of the dreaded indicators that many have been using in the past to judge whether Bitcoin is going to be having a major, massive, catastrophic, perhaps even pullback, crash in some cases, has actually fired off as of recently, and it's kind of been the talk of the town, if you will. So I wanted to go over the data today, look at what the statistics say, and then perhaps make a judgment on top of that. Anyways, other than that, I want to once again mess up all my damn words because I don't know English. Welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's actually not so much of a lovely day today. It's pretty dreary and ugly outside, but you know what? We got more important things to do together, boyos and girlos, and let's just jump right into it. So the indicator that I'm talking about in question is the hash ribbons indicator. It's essentially a measurement of miner capitulation. And in this case, we have actually seen this one fire off recently. In fact, as of the last week, or as of the last few days, in fact. So in this case, is that concerning? Well, let's look at the past. Let's look at the last time we actually saw this one happen. Well, this one happened pretty much right around the current lows for this macro cycle. That was about 16,500. Yeah, things did kind of drop down again somewhere around that region, but actually didn't even travel any further down. The one before that, certainly very devastating, in fact, as we did see a move all the way from about 30,300 to about 17,500 and change, something like that. So, pretty sizable move. So we have seen several of these play out in the past, actually. In fact, there's been 17 total signals. I've marked them all off on this chart here, although we can't all see them at the exact same time because it goes through the whole full history of Bitcoin. But of those 17 prior historical signals, only 8 of them actually had downsides, sizable downside moves, meaning that 9 out of 17 were, in my opinion, or at least what I would consider failures, meaning that they did not produce any sort of major continuation to the downside, or maybe even any at all. So I would say anything less than 5% is inconsequential as far as I'm considered. And that would even give it a greater than 50% probability that, the signal just fails. Now, we can take this one step further, actually, because there does seem to be a bit of a rhyme or reason to kind of filtering through which one of these was more likely to play out than not. And as you can see, when the yellow 21 exponential moving average is crossed to the downside of the green 55, so a silver cross to the downside, there has been, those are the ones when capitulation happens that actually can play out a pretty nasty downside move. In this case, this would be a great example right here in October of 2018, before Bitcoin went down over 50% over the next month and a half to the prior cycle lows at 3,100. But when we see the silver cross to the upside, meaning the yellow 21 above the 55, let me find an iteration over here. Come on, I know that there's many. Yes, indeed, there's one right here. These have actually all just been higher lows. Yeah, some of them have dipped down a little bit in some cases. I'm trying to find a good example. Here would be one. We do see a silver cross. Price action goes up, drops back down. Nice higher low. But in general, all of them have not really even dropped any further past that initial capitulation signal. And in fact, this one really looks like a buy signal, but if I zoom in, you can see capitulation right there. Yes. Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that was very visible. Anyways, yes, so going back to our current iteration, let's see what the situation is. And what do you know? There's a silver cross to the upside. So I would be looking at this one as more than likely to potentially pull back, but that pullback is likely to be a higher low. So in this case, can Bitcoin still pull back here? Yeah, absolutely. I think if it does want to drop down somewhere into like the mid to low $28,000 territory, would still be my main area of interest. But ultimately, I would be looking for a higher low there. As in this case, the capitulation signal did happen while there's very obviously a silver cross to the upside. And just going off the data, I don't really have any major concerns with that. In fact, at some point, we will see, or inevitably at some point, might not be today, might not be tomorrow. In fact, it probably very unlikely will, but in the next few weeks, we will see the other signal on the other side after a capitulation signal, which is the blue buy signal, the beautiful blue buy signal, which actually was a humongous help in calling the current macro cycle lows, as well as the last few years as well. But in this case, we can go ahead and see that anytime that has happened, well, that's when it was game on again, basically. It doesn't necessarily time like the next major move to the upside. Let me find a good example here. Well, there's one right in front of my face. You can see capitulation right there. Boom, blue buy signal over here. So, price action already gone up like quite a fair bit before that happened. So I wouldn't necessarily say that waiting for that is the most wise thing in terms of timing. But that was when things like really took off over there, as you can see. Let's find another example right here. This one a little bit better actually in terms of timing. We can see the capitulation signal right here. Price action comes down, doesn't even close below there. Blue buy signal right here, and then off to the fucking races. Basically for forever and onwards from that time. Do we have another example perhaps back one over here? Yes, indeed we do. Again, here's your capitulation, comes down, sets in a higher low, right on the 21 actually. You don't get your blue buy signal until many months later actually. And in this case, price action already gone up how much? 67%. So no, I don't think that necessarily waiting for that particular one is necessarily wise as well. So the real game right now, at least in my opinion, based off of this data, is kind of the same thing as before, in the sense that, price action can certainly come down here a little bit more, absolutely. But I'm not really concerned. I'm more or less looking at that as an opportunity. Can that be wrong? Yes, absolutely. Of course, there are going to be times, or I'd assume that there's a non-zero probability that will not hold true, throughout the full history of time. But as you can see, over the past, I guess nearly 13, 14 years now, that's essentially been the case. So I look at that as likely to hold true until proven otherwise, or at least highly likely to continue to hold true. Anyways, let's go into the next chart. I'll make this video a little bit more on the shorter side because there's, again, really, look, Bitcoin's been going sideways for more than 4 weeks now. There's really not much to update. 4-hour time frame right here on the HPDR indicator. Does seem to be putting in a little bit of a short-term low, actually. Average of the range currently coming in at 30,150. I don't know how much I trust that actually right now. Really would like to see it pop back up above the highs of what we did see on Sunday at about 30,450, about $100 higher than that region. And at that point, I'd probably be looking for the retest of the tops out of the current range, just below 31,000 bucks. So that did move down a little bit, as did the bottom side of the range, which is 29,000. I would still say 29,550 is probably good enough in this case, with closures below there. Very likely be getting that next move to the downside, probably somewhere around 28.3, 28.2 region, and that could very well be that next higher low, based off of the data that we did look at over here. Until then, I really wouldn't be calling this one all essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? Not fulfilled, but confirmed. Confirmed. Until we do see Bitcoin at minimum on a 4-hour time frame back above, I'd still say 31,000 bucks actually. Until then, probably more sideways, man. Probably more sideways. We can go ahead and check out stochastic momentum. Yesterday, we were seeing pretty much all time frames, it seemed like, in unison, in concert to the downside. But as usual, whenever we see things, in concert like that and all headed down, it does produce the sort of situation where, hey, if we don't see continuation of the downside relatively soon, those indicators, those momentum indicators will essentially reset, and upside becomes the name of the game yet again. In fact, on the daily over here for Bitcoin, daily momentum will actually turn back up above 31,450. So probably not super likely today. However, I did want to call out that there is a nice trendline regression coming in from these last few lows, which it would actually be resting on pretty much exactly today, maybe tomorrow. But you can see, somewhere around there would be about right, meaning that if you do start to see Bitcoin curl around over the next 48 hours back above 31,400 for today, and that number probably moves down tomorrow, then that'd be a damn good indication that we'll see yet another major low coming in alongside this trend line, which has been governing the low since March, actually. So the March lows, the April lows, the May lows, the June lows, or the double May lows / the June lows, and then potentially the July lows over here. So that would be sort of the next piece of the puzzle. If you are in the bullish side, you want to see that start to turn around over the next 48 hours, probably sooner rather than later. It's going to be better, obviously, but this would be kind of the time. 12-hour time frame is going to be doing what is going to be coming in from the extreme critical zone as well, and going to be crossing up today above 29,850. 6-hour time frame is going to be also headed up with some gusto there as well, above 29,700. I would keep an eye out for this trend line here, however, because at some point it will converge with that. But for right now, short-term upside, very, very likely. 4-hour time frame also be headed up, but will turn back down below $30,000. By the way, these are all on CME, which has a little bit of a premium over spot price action as of right now. And the hourly time frame is going to be also headed up above 30,038. So yeah, perhaps we actually do see that. Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, these things are starting to turn around here. So yeah, I suppose Friday we'll have a little more clarity on the situation. Thursdays always get a little bit on edge just because Thursday is, typically speaking, the most likely downside day for Bitcoin. It's not always a downside day, obviously, but for the big downside days in Bitcoin, they've been mostly on Thursdays for whatever reason. I don't fucking know, but that's just been the data. So I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. Should I do the old shill over here? It's a free shill. You can get the Jewel Light for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the link description below. So there's your free shill of the day. All right, cool. That's going to be it for me. I'm going to be signing off. I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care. Much love and see you hopefully Friday.